for later. There we go. Okay, so today we have a brand new series through the CASFA Convo with the Professional Development Committee, and it's called the Power Skills Series. And today we're going to have two presenters talk to you guys about and have some conversations about slowing down to improve productivity. So our two presenters are Sarah Wellman. She is a financial aid advisor at Washburn University, and she is the current chair of this professional development committee. And she's been in financial aid for 4 years. A fun fact about Sarah is that she likes to read and complete puzzles to unwind. And we also have Julie Scott from Wichita State University, and she is a business and technology data analyst. I have to read that off because I was getting twisted around. It's okay. At Wichita State, and she's been in financial aid for 12 years. A fun fact about Julie is that she started running again after a double-digit years long hiatus, and she's enjoying it to relax. And both of her boys are faster than her at this time. So I'm Emily Kiter. I'm going to be the moderator today. If you guys have any questions or comments or whatnot, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll have times where we can stop and pause and get some of your questions or whatnot answered. So I will go ahead and pass it off to Sarah and Julie.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm excited to see all of you. We're going to be having a couple of times throughout the conversation today where you can type some questions into the chat. You can interact in the chat. You can share your ideas. And then at the end, we'll also have some Q&A to kind of share your experiences as well as ask us some questions about how we're incorporating these ideas into our lives. So I hope that all of you are ready to change your life for the better by implementing many of the strategies that Sarah and I are going to share today. Keep in mind, of course, that not everything is for everyone. We all play different roles in our work lives, in our not work lives. And so these are the strategies that Sarah and I have been putting into practice, and we each even have our own flavor for how we apply it in our lives. But what we did was put together some of the common denominators to our strategies that we've been utilizing. And so that's what we're going to share with you guys today. You may also notice that my commentary is indeed a critique against the hurriedness constructed by, quote, busy lives. And so where we stack one activity after another. Um, and so my question for you all, and you can type this in the chat, is this you? You're busy without feeling productive. You have a to-do list that is scattered on post-it notes. You have so much to do and you don't know what to do first. You struggle to focus, but you never feel like you're actually fully present. You can't say no. You start things and never finish them. That is totally me. Or after a year of FAFSA simplification, after 2 years of this, like I feel like we've kind of been living this for 2 years. We are burnt out. I see Julie Finn has put yes, yes, yes. So many of the things. Guys, type it into the chat. Which of these describes your situation? Darcy said, girl, it was 3 years. Yes, 100%. Um, Sarah has already moved along the trajectory of improvement. So there was a time that this was her. All of the above. Don't know where to start. Yeah, I feel like these are definitely all the things that describe the pulse of what might be going on in our lives when we feel this disconnect between what we want our life to look like and what our life is currently looking like. So maybe you guys are in that loop of saying yes without evaluating your personal cost. Maybe you're finding yourself procrastinating on major initiatives and always chasing fires. Is that the financial aid administrator motto? I chase lots of fires, right? Maybe you're attempting to curate the childhood of a lifetime for your own kids, or for your own life, but you're never really feeling present with your family. Maybe you're trying to fill your schedule so full to chase fulfillment, but you're never actually really satisfied. So I want you all, after you've typed that all into the chat, I want you to pause. I want you to take a breath. So let's all take like a collective breath, right? And just rest and embrace the moment of now. I want you all to be singularly present in your life. And this is what I'm going to really challenge you guys to do for today's CASFA Convo session. I want you to put away your phone. You guys doing it? I can't see many of you because you don't have your cameras on, which is fine. But I'm assuming that you're
I have
listening and
my
putting away your
purse.
phone. Awesome, Sarah. Way to go. It's like we planned it. I want you to close your email. I want you to close your Teams chats, your other types of chats that are going on. I even want you to close your system or your database. And for the love of all that is holy, if you are logged into FPS right now, I want you to log out. I know it's a bear to get back in. I get it. I get it. Um, but the reason that I want you guys to be singularly present, Crystal's like, I gotta close so many tabs. Um, these are the outcomes that we are really trying to aim toward for today. And what Sarah and I are talking about is based on some different books that we have read. I happen to have read these three. I think Sarah has read Slow Productivity and incorporated that along with several other books to just kind of changing this mindset and creating kind of a new lifestyle of managing time. And so we encourage you to either read these books, or if you're a podcast listener, you don't love to read, but you've got time on a walk or other times to listen to podcasts, is diving in with Cal Newport. He's got a podcast called Deep Questions, and he's got this book called Slow Productivity. Greg McKeown, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. I have no idea. But he wrote a book called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And I will share that the book by Jordan Rayner is it's got a lot of religious overtones. So if that's not for you, you can skip his particular book, but it was a great read for me, Redeeming Your Time. And he's got a podcast. He's got a separate one that he does, but then he's got kind of a 7-episode podcast that talks about redeeming your time, where he does that with Mark Batterson. So these are the outcomes that we think we will result in kind of a more holistic, practical approach to time management and productivity, where we believe that you'll have improved mental health and well-being, higher quality work life, and better work-life balance if you implement these different strategies. And it's so much more than just your work time management. If you apply these principles, it really will pay deep dividends. Think deeply about the life that you want. So you might hear me, if you listen to Cal Newport and his podcast, which I love listening to, he will talk about lifestyle centered planning, and that everything that he chooses to do is whether or not it's going to fit into the lifestyle that he wants. So you really want to be thinking about, how does this fit into the lifestyle that I want 1 week from now? If I apply these principles, what could my life look like a month from now? What could the Julie of a year from now, what could her life look like? And so if you think about that type of thing and you plan your life around the life you want for you, time management is at its core lifestyle center planning. So you get to give your family, yourself, your friends, your work colleagues, more time to actually be present with you so you can be more productive. So I'm going to move on to a few things that what Sarah and I have really thought are like the radical non-negotiables of this type of lifestyle and time management commitment, so that you can be purposeful, present, and productive in your own life. So first, you've got to be disciplined. And we want to really encourage you the idea of buying into a routine. And so that'll be something that Sarah is going to talk about in her section. We also want you to have a mindset that you can have less but better, not always saying yes to everything. So sometimes less is the right answer. A ruthless, and I chose that word very intentionally, a ruthless commitment to eliminate distractions. That was why I had you put away your phones. It is why I encourage you to close your Teams chat, to get off FPS, to close all the browser windows. Um, and just eliminating all the things that distract you from the thing that you need to be focusing on in that moment. Have an accountability partner. Hold yourself accountable. And if you have a Ben Scott in your life, Ben is 11. He is my youngest son, and he is my accountability partner for my usage of the phone. He will catch me on a phone app and he'll be like, Mom, I'm talking to you right now. And I'm like, oh, he's my accountability partner for having removed like a lot of the social media apps from my phone. So get yourself a little Ben Scott. I'll loan him out to you if you guys need him. And then next is really embracing productive rest. We can't work at our best if we don't also choose a day of the week in which we try to eliminate all the distractions and just allow ourselves to rest in whatever way that works for our lifestyle. So, moving us on to these are the three key principles that we're going to chat about today. And I know, I promise you that Sarah and I have implemented these and we did not get fired from our jobs.
Not even close.
We assure you. We want you to consider doing fewer things and to prioritize your yeses. Whatever you've said yes to, you're going to prioritize those. And you're also going to learn how to say no. We want you to obsess over quality and be unipresent. And so that's unipresent is something that Jordan Raynor talks about in his Redeem Your Time book. I forgot to do my little reading rainbow. I was going to hold up all the books like I'm on Reading Rainbow. LeVar Burton would be so proud of me, or maybe disappointed. But unipresent really means to be singularly present and to focus on the single thing that you're supposed to be working on in that moment so that you can give 100% of yourself in that particular moment to that particular thing. So that's why little Ben is saying, Mom, I'm talking with you right now. You should not be scrolling on your phone and looking at Facebook. But he talks. Next is we want you to work at a natural pace and eliminate all hurry. One of the things in my beginning of this journey when I was reading all these different books was just even removing from my vocabulary the word busy, to not just continue to say as a response and as my default response, oh, life is so busy right now. So I've also got a few definitions and a few caveats for you out there. Something that Cal Newport talks about in his Slow Productivity book is the difference between knowledge work and task-based work. And some of us might be in more roles in our offices that are more focused on knowledge work, where we have a lot of autonomy in what we do and the projects that we take on. They take a lot of deep thought to get an output. Some of us might be focused more on task-based work. That's where we have less autonomy. You've got to answer emails. You've got to process the R2T4s. You've got to do these types of things. And it's not that they're not requiring knowledge to do those types of things, but they might require a little bit different deep thought. And you have less creativity, less autonomy in those types of tasks. So a few other definitions. Efficiency is just simply the quality of being able to do a task successfully without wasting time or energy. It doesn't mean that you can't be creative and that you can't go down different pathways to ultimately choose the right pathway, but it's being efficient with your time. Productivity is the rate at which you do useful work, so work that actually matters with an outcome that you're doing. So my caveats for you are that I know some of you are like, but I got a micromanager boss. You know what? It is totally still okay. All you directors can be really proud of me right now that I'm going to say you still need to report your productivity to your bosses, and that is still well within their domain to hold you accountable for those types of things, to answer so many emails, meet with so many students, give so many presentations, or process so many applications and forms. And the other caveat is that this process only works if doing fewer things, if you actually do them better. So you can't just be like, I'm going to start saying no to things, but I'm still going to suck at them. That doesn't work. So with that in mind, don't let small tasks fill your time like air fills the space in a balloon. So It's kind of one of those things of like sometimes people will take 8 hours to do those 6 emails, or they can suddenly somehow do them in an hour. Like, don't let your time just float away. And solve the real problem. Consider the why behind students might be why they might be emailing you, not simply what they asked. And that's kind of how you might spend a little bit more time doing something. You're doing fewer things, but you're actually going to do them better. Okay, Crystal posted in the chat that she loves R2T4s. Good for her. Good for you, Crystal. I don't love R2T4s. All right, so our first principle is doing fewer things and prioritizing your yeses. So with that, we want to get the right things done. We want to be really intentional about choosing the right projects. And when you choose not to choose, you've made a choice. And so with that, how do you make your choices is putting your highest contribution to the things that matter most. So when I look at all the projects that I might need to be that are on my wish list from the whole office of things they want to improve or they need data on this type of stuff, I'm going to be looking at how many students does that affect? How many staff members does it affect? What's the work time? And I'm going to put my contribution to the things that are going to have the biggest impact. And that's going to be how I choose which projects to do. You also want to limit your number of missions, your number of projects, and your number of daily goals. You got to be really realistic. And if you're more realistic about what you can actually get done, you're going to give yourself more grace so that you can finish things. And reduce the administrative overhead of taking on too many yeses. So what administrative overhead that Cal Newport talks about is just how much it takes to do 10 projects or whatever. How much of your brain power it takes to switch between projects or to be managing meetings because I took on this extra project. I got to manage meetings around it. I got to touch base with different staff members about what they need. I need to get all the specs for different things. There's just so much administrative overhead every time you say yes to something. So you should really consult that and consider that when you're saying yes to a particular project. When you implement the doing fewer things and prioritizing your yeses, it creates the opportunity that you can actually absorb those unexpected commitments that come on your plate. Sometimes you don't get to say no to certain things, and some things are really unexpected, but you can absorb those opportunities. But you can also absorb the good things too, because when something then pops up and you've built some extra time for serendipity into your schedule, that allows you to absorb the unexpected opportunities. And with this, choice and discernment are really essential. And discernment is such a good word to describe what you need to implement, as being so discerning about what you choose to allow into your life. And so these are the questions that Jordan Raynor in Redeeming Your Time really encourages you to think about when you prioritize and you consider whether I'm going to say yes to something. Does it fit my core mission? Or does it fit the mission of what we're doing as an office? Do I have room to say yes within my time budget? And Sarah's going to talk to us about how she builds her time budget. Does this opportunity align with my goals? So whether those are my personal goals, my work goals, professional goals, lifetime, long trajectory goals, that type of thing. Am I excited about it? But we can get excited about a lot of things, but sometimes we need to say no to those things that we're excited about because you need to ask yourself, why are you excited about it? Ask yourself, is this the most generous use of my time? I promise you, I love working with students. I think it's so much fun to work with the students, but that's actually no longer the most generous use of my time in our office. My primary function is to help staff be more efficient with their tasks and to help build them reports and tools and all of that kind of technology type of stuff. So while I want to say yes to helping the students, that's not the most generous use of my time these particular days. Am I the best person to say yes to this request? So maybe there's someone that's more skilled out there that should take on that request, or it's something that they can be equally good at, or an opportunity for them to grow professionally if you were to give them the opportunity to say yes rather than yourself. This one's going to hit you. This one's going to cut deep. Am I trying to do good or make myself look good? That one is so tough for me, but it has helped immensely in trying to decide whether I say yes to an opportunity. And then lastly, what will I need to say no to as a result of this particular yes? Um, Next, our second principle is to obsess over quality and to be unipresent or singularly present and focused. I know I've got a lot of words on this particular slide, but you've probably heard me talk about it before that multitasking is an absolute myth. It is not something that we are capable to do. You have to do focused work and just you can't do anything by trying to spin all those plates. You guys remember like in the circus, you have those guys and gals that can like spin all the different plates and it like gives me anxiety, right? Like I feel like so nervous for that person up there on the stage that's spinning all the different plates. What if they just spun one plate at a time? It would not be as exciting to watch, but my anxiety level would go significantly down. So really being able to do focused work, especially if you've got deep projects where you're trying to move your office forward with different initiatives. The other thing that I want to emphasize is coming from the book Essentialism, and that is the word priority versus priorities. When priority first came about, and he's got this whole etymology of the word, but it meant one thing: priority, not priorities. You can only have one thing that is of utmost importance. Let that sink in. That's kind of deep to only have a singular priority. Next, you want to reduce interruptions to avoid losing time between task switching. Every time that you have to change between different projects or you get interrupted on Teams or chat and things like that, you're losing some of that cognitive administrative overhead to task switch and to swap between different things. And give the right things a place on your calendar. So if a project is going to take you some time, put that on your calendar. And Sarah will give us some really great examples about that. Some examples of how I do focused deep work planning so that I can really get some great quality out of what I'm doing is that I designate certain days of my week where a portion of that day, not the entire day, but a portion of that day, I know that my deep work is going to be doing specific projects. So for instance, Wednesdays are when I generally will do a lot of report writing because I got to be in a singular mindset to be able to write SQL code and to not be interrupted when I'm doing that particular work and writing those reports. And maybe Fridays, it's a lighter day in the office. I'm less likely to have any interruptions from people. And so those are my creative problem solving days. So when I work on the big wish list items of the next thing in the queue that people want a creative solution to. So I'm going to work on that so that I can have a kind of a day that I need to be creative and in that mode and mindset. Here's how you execute better, tasks a lot better. Cal Newport will talk about being so good they can't ignore you. So that when you do fewer things, you do them so well that they can't ignore that you are just phenomenal at getting them done. Finish something before you start something new. That is the king of being able to not just have all these open loops of things that you haven't finished. Close your open loops. So these are things like just doing what you can to get things done. If there's an email that someone has given to you, is go ahead and put it on your calendar with some time to work that particular email. And not just leaving things open. So if you need to schedule a meeting with someone, just get it right on the calendar, do that type of thing so that there's not just all these open loops of like things that you've got to think about doing and managing in your brain. You give a proactive approach to communication and clarity. Structure emails better to get what you need. One example of that is that if I need central staff to vote on a new process change, I'm going to make sure that I have them give them a deadline in the email. And it's just very specific. This project this vote needs to be in by Friday at 5 p.m. so that I can get it pushed on, that type of thing. Minimum viable approach to keep your momentum going. And so that what is the minimum amount of progress I need to make so that I can keep the momentum of the project progressing forward. And quality will take time, but don't be afraid to let ideas marinate and seek to find the root cause of different issues. And that's kind of like where I go back to if you're solving an email from a student, they're going to email you 5 times if you don't get at the core of why they're emailing you. If you just keep answering the question they're asking, you're going to have to respond to that student 5 times. Think about why they're actually emailing you. To give you some really practical examples, but here are some how-tos of doing different things that we've kind of talked about of delivering a generous no. So you could delay your response. You could be clear about your current priority. Here is the project I'm currently working on. You can still encourage the person, can politely decline, and you can still offer to help, but you're going to offer less than the full request. So maybe it's like, hey, email me your question, and when I have time, I'll respond with some of my ideas. But maybe you're not offering the opportunity to give them a 30-minute, 45-minute meeting, that type of thing. Close your open loops by adding it to a task list, seeking clarity from different people. So I'm not going to start on a SQL query until I have all of the different specs from an individual. You got to tell me what you want before I'm going to start on your project, and really focus on one thing at a time. Reduce the back and forth. So sometimes we like to live in this world where I'm chatting back and forth with people, or we've got all these emails that we're waiting on an email response. But sometimes it really is better if you replace that asynchronous with a real-time conversation, and you just pick up the phone and you call someone to get a quick answer. Next is minimizing interruptions. And the ways that you can do this are schedule your responses from Teams. So just because they Teamsed you may or may not mean that you actually need to give them a response in that moment. You could request them to email you. Turn off your pop-ups. If you're really good at using some different AI tools, you can also get it where maybe the pop-ups still come through from your boss, but maybe not anyone else. But really turn off those pop-ups so you don't have all those different distractions, and use office hours if you can to just like, this is the time that you can kind of ask me different things. So directors, I know you like to have like open door policies. That's great. We love that we have access to you, but maybe you only give that in a certain span of time. So my office is open between 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, for you to come in for different questions and that type of thing, but not necessarily that your door needs to be available to your staff 100% of the time. Eliminate distractions, turn off notifications, remove phone apps. I have, at Ben Scott's request, removed Facebook and Instagram from my phone, so that now I have to actually log into those systems. I think Cal Newport even says he only uses it on his desktop, so he will never even log in on his phone to those types of distraction apps. And set realistic timelines, be honest, allow yourself some time for creativity. And then lastly, avoid the mindless scrolling on our phones of how much we're doing that is just a time suck and a time waste. Cal Newport recommends the phone foyer method. If you listen to his podcast, he'll talk about this, where if your home has like just a location where you can plug that phone in so that you only utilize that phone standing up, and you can only use it in that 10-foot space or whatever. So those are some of my tips. And with that, I want to turn it over to Sarah so she can talk about working at a natural pace and her excellent examples of how she budgets her time.
Yes. So the third idea that we're talking about is working at a natural pace and eliminating all hurry. I do just want to note here that, like, I rush into the office a lot of days because I'm not late, but I do like it can be close. So it's not necessarily like there's different types of hurry. And the big thing is like, Julie and I, we don't have it all together. So please don't take away from this that Sarah Wellman and Julie Scott are like they have nailed being an adult. We don't. So just eliminate all hurry. But with those caveats there of like, there are times you're not going to have it all together. You don't have to have it all together at any point. So just be aware of that. And so the big thing here is that for a lot of us, our bosses don't necessarily dictate the details of our schedules. So we may be our own taskmasters, and oftentimes we can be harder on ourselves than other people may be on us. So one thing to think about here is the culture that we've basically come into over the past few years, especially with social media, is the grind. And so the grind has been really glamorized. I would say, at least on like the social media that I see, that everyone is girl bossing and we're working so hard. And so, but for the nature of what we do, we're working so hard over many, many years. And so at a certain point, that is not sustainable and it's not humane for you to basically continue to do that. And so I will say for me personally, it wasn't. I was in like a grind culture and it wasn't sustainable and I honestly hated it. It's not that I hated my job, it's that I hated that the pace that I made myself work at. So it wasn't my boss or anyone else. It was simply kind of the pressure that I put on myself. Um, so I took a step back from what Cal Newport calls the numbing exhaustion of jittery busyness. Because that's kind of really that was the reality of what I was living day to day. And so that step back allowed for a more sustainable and humane approach in how I both at work, but then also in my home life. Because I was coming home from working an 8-hour day, and what's for dinner? I don't know. Can you go to the grocery store? I don't want to. The kids want to play games. I kind of want to rot on the couch, to be honest with you. So just taking that step back at work allowed me to be a better person outside of the office as well. And so just keep in mind, there's always more work for us to do. That's what we do. But make the work that you have to do a part of your life, and then also make your life well lived, and simply have the work be a part of that life, not all of it. And so to get into some details here, time budget, giving every minute a name, you're going to see my personal calendar in a few slides. And my office hates my calendar. I've had people email me in my office and they're like, when can we meet? And I'm like, great question. So just know, give every minute a name. It does look scary and it does take some getting used to, but you'll get there. And then allowing for breaks and a margin. So humans are not great at estimating how long it will take to complete a cognitive task. So an option may be to increase your projected timelines on the projects that you've said yes to. And then you're going to be misunderstood, and then kind of to tie that into the eliminating distractions and minimizing interruptions. Simplifying your workday comes back to creating a routine. And one option here is to protect certain hours of the day. So part of my job is that I meet with students here at Washburn, but I have the 8 o'clock hour, so from 8 to 9, and then from 4 to 5. I have that protected Monday through Friday. And I essentially block that out for emails. So I start and end my day with emails, and if I don't touch another email during the day, I've at least done 2 solid hours of emails. And I work, which we'll talk about now, is the seasonality. So in August, when the semester's starting, everyone has questions. Where's my aide? All of the things are coming at us. I extend my email hours by essentially 30 minutes on either side. So then I'm doing a total of 3 hours of emails a day. And again, it comes back to, if I don't answer one other email during my day, I've at least put in some very solid work on my emails. So your schedule and your routine can adjust depending on the seasonality. And of course, with what we do, some years there's a lot of seasonality. So with 24, 25 and beyond, of course, with the FAFSA issues, a lot of us, myself included, we found ourselves in basically a constant state of anxious high energy with little change over a long period of time. I'm still helping students troubleshoot their 24, 25 FAFSA, while at the same time, do you have things ready to fill out your 25, 26 FAFSA? They don't have aid. How do I enroll in my spring courses, which are currently open? So the seasonality that would normally have ended if the 24-25 FAFSA had opened on October 1st, and was processed earlier by the Department of Education, we've lost that seasonality recently. And I think it's burnt a lot of people out, and it's made it very hard for us to continue to like put on our happy faces. And we're so excited to help you get your aid, but I don't know what's going on. So just know that we have seasonality, even if it's kind of lost right now. It is still there, and it's okay to vary your intensity and your focus throughout based on that seasonality. So when we're scheduling, take your time off. Don't save it for a rainy day. Don't bank it. Unless you're planning like a huge 3-week vacation in June when your office is sort of quiet. Take your time off and just know that we're supposed to have seasonality, and normally we do, and that's fine. And it's okay to vary your intensity and focus throughout the year. You don't always need to be in a state of anxious high energy with a little change. So just be aware of that. We can go. I don't think I can move to the next slide, but Julie can. So we're going to take a break here to have you guys kind of answer this in the chat. So I need you guys to fill in the blank. Time is essentially, what is time to you? It can be one word, it can be a few words. It's open to you guys how you want to interpret this question. So tell us what you think time is in the chat. Okay, Ginger says fleeting. Linda says precious. I think my answer would probably be finite. It's definitely, I mean, in terms of us individually, it's gonna end at some point. Money in today's economy from Crystal, that's good. Rachel agrees that it's finite. We can move on, Julie. So knowing that we don't have an unlimited amount of time, what are we doing with the time that we do have? And then specifically looking at that in the work capacity right now for project and task management. So there's a few different ways that this can be done. And so Julie uses task and project management software, specifically Microsoft Tasks and Planner. I use Planner a little bit with some work events that we do, but then it's actually right here. And I don't think you guys can see the details. I write it out on a legal pad. I make our office stock up on the legal pads. And I simply the whole time I've been at Washburn, I have had my to-do list on a legal pad. It is just a list. I put maybe dates to complete things by with that item, but I don't like date that like I'm gonna finish these 5 tasks today. I just have the list and I determine what's a priority to me. And then if it's on my list, it's gonna get done. And so there's different ways that you can track your projects and task management. It's gonna be trial and error in terms of what works for you. And so there's not like one right way or wrong way to do this. But these are just tools that Julie and I use. The big thing here is you want it in one location. We don't want our to-do list scattered across 50 post-it notes on our desk, because then you're gonna lose them. Just I know in our office, some people it's kind of for some of us it's cubicles, and so for sometimes you share the cubicles, and so Darcy's cats will eat them. So just be aware that if they're on post-it notes or not in one single location, you're probably not going to get everything on your to-do list done. You're going to become the guys in the circus with the plates on the sticks, and there's like 7 of them that you're juggling at once. And the other thing here is your Outlook inbox is not your to-do list. So even though you have an Outlook inbox or whatever form of email you use, your office uses, it's not your to-do list. So just kind of keep all these things in mind that there's different ways to implement everything that we talk about today. And just because what works for Julie or I may not work for you, but kind of brainstorm with yourself over a period of time of what can work for you if you're not currently using anything to help you keep track of your projects and task management. We can go to the next one.
So then we're going to talk about kind of optimizing your time and routine specifically. So time management is energy management. If you're trying to manage your time without managing your energy, you're going to be inaccurate on your timelines and or you're going to be inefficient with your time. So one thing to keep in mind here is that energy levels will fluctuate throughout the day. It's normal, it's okay, and just keep that in mind when you're planning your day. Personally, I love the morning hours. I am most productive between 8 a.m. And my lunch. I'm probably least productive when I return from lunch. And so I'm aware of that about myself. And so when I need to schedule, like I'm aware of the administrative overhead on certain tasks and my deep work and all of that, I'm going to schedule those for the morning, and not the afternoon generally. Sometimes you can't get around it, and that's totally fine. But just knowing yourself and when you're most productive. So your routine is going to eliminate your hurry. I know that I will be answering emails at 4 o'clock. So if you message me and you say, "Hey, um, do you see this email?" Yep, I'll get to it later. So it also disrupts that cognitive task switching where I'm not, yeah, I'll take a look at that email right now. And so I'll pause the spreadsheet work that I'm doing to take a look at the email, but the email is really, this student needs to enroll. So then I have to contact the business office, and then the business office has to get back to me, and then I have to wait, and then I have to get back to the student, and then maybe I can go back to the spreadsheet that I was working on. So it's okay to not respond to everything the moment that you get it. And having the routine helps minimize the cognitive effort associated with remembering, worrying, and scheduling. And something that I want to highlight here is what's called a worry journal. And I know this sounds a little woo-woo, so just bear with me. I don't always use a worry journal, but I do have one. And so when I get worried about things, I'm a big what if person. So when start to get worried about the what ifs, I know for me, it doesn't contain any value. So I write that down in my worry journal when I get like really worried about things. And then I let it go. It's written down in my worry journal. Every few months I go back through and honestly, I have crossed every single thing in my worry journal off. I've essentially put it off for a later date. And then when I come back to it, I'm like, oh, it didn't matter that this did or didn't happen. And it's just done and it's not my problem anymore. And then the routines help you contain and prioritize your task, and it can put the task on autopilot. Again, I'm not thinking about when I'm responding to these emails because I'm going to respond to them either between 8 and 9 or between 4 and 5, or if I have additional time throughout my day that I build into the day, I'll get to it then. We can go to the next slide. So scheduling time blocks is really, it's going to be personal. And so things to look at here are when do I produce my best work? So that comes back to, I know that I'm best in the mornings. So that's when I schedule my deep work. And deep work is, essentially, so there's shallow work and deep work. Shallow work is the less than urgent tasks. And so consider scheduling the shallow work when your energy is lower and less focus is required of you. So in summers, Washburn sort of closes Friday afternoons. Some offices close, some don't. Financially doesn't, but it does allow Washburn staff in general to have a more flexible Friday afternoon schedule. So a lot of people work on Friday afternoons throughout the summer. I scheduled a lot of my deep work then, simply because I knew that I was going to have less interruptions. And how much time is this task really going to take? Be honest and realistic with yourself. And again, keep in mind knowing that you're probably going to want to double the amount of time that you think a task is going to take you because humans are really bad at estimating how long something specific will take us to get done. And allow time between meetings, student appointments, things like that. Block your calendar. So like for this appointment meeting, I blocked 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after. It's not because I was going to need those times. It's simply so that nothing else, if anything was going to overlap, it wouldn't have cut into the 10 o'clock hour. And plan your next day in advance. I'm not great about this because I usually try to plan a week at a time, knowing that days within there can fluctuate, and that's absolutely okay. But you can definitely do a day at a time, a week at a time, things like that. And allow time for task and cognitive switching. I used to be Washburn's loan specialist, and one thing that I did there was a lot of like heavy reports that I would need NSLDS for, and are they at their loan limit? If they are, what are their options? And it was a lot of cognitive work for me, and it was really hard for me to task switch. So just knowing that our brains are horrible at task switching. We are not meant to do this activity for 3 minutes and then this one for 3 more minutes and then this one for 5. I typically block my time for an hour at minimum. There's a few things that may be 30 minutes, but at work, my time block is going to be hour minimum. And don't forget to take your walks, get a drink, meditate throughout the day. Like, yes, we're here to work, but taking these, for us, it's a 15-minute break every morning and afternoon. But taking these breaks throughout the day, honestly, for me, makes me a better employee. I come back refreshed. I come back ready to dive into my deep work, and get stuff done. So something to consider is how you prioritize your tasks and your time blocks. And so there is a nice little square here of the urgent and important tasks, and then important and not urgent, not important but urgent, and not important and not urgent. I personally would say if it's not important and not urgent, is it really something we should have said yes to? So something while we're working through what we're saying yes to and what we're not saying yes to is this grid. And is it important and urgent, or kind of where it falls within the grid? And then that may help us figure out, one, do we want to say yes? And two, how much time do we want to block off on our calendar for this specific task? So here is a week in the life of Sarah Wellman as a financial aid advisor at Washburn. One thing I do is I meet with students, but that's not all that I do. So there is some redacted data here. It was student data. Those are my student appointments. There's also a few where it says student appointments. So those are ones that I booked. The other ones the students booked through their app. There's also some loan issues on here. At the time, I was working on 23-24 loan stuff. And so I built all of this into my calendar. I knew that the loan issues, I don't know what it is. They always end up taking longer than they need to. And it's the Department of Education and it's NSLDS. So I knew really that should have been a 2-hour block. And lunch. I take lunch. I try to take lunch every day at the same time. It's just a standing appointment on my calendar. Same with my email blocks. This particular week, we were also working on our 25-26 FAFSA presentation. So the second day there, Tuesday, I actually essentially built out the whole day to do that. I also have approved timesheets on here because that is a task I do every other Tuesday for some of our student workers. And so I don't have to remember on every other Tuesday, is this the Tuesday that I approve timesheets? It's on my calendar for the day that I have to approve it. And so at 9 o'clock, I go in and I approve those timesheets. If something happens and I have to switch like the time on that task, it takes the task itself honestly takes about 5 minutes. So I have the freedom to do that, but I don't have the cognitive load of remembering that I have to do that on that particular Tuesday. And then there's a navigate block for presentation prep and travel, because I knew that my presentation, I don't remember what time it was, but it was an evening one. So I knew that I would have to leave work, but then also maybe get gas and get dinner. And so I build in time if I need it in the workday for those events. And then I like this week because I had some time out. So Thursday, and then Friday, I took Thursday afternoon and Friday morning off. And take your time off. You've earned it. When it works for you and when it works for your particular school and your office. And then on Friday, you'll see I moved my morning email block to, I think that was about noon. So I still had my email block that day. It just wasn't at the 8 o'clock hour because I wasn't here. And then also on that day, I actually did book a student appointment at 4 because the student was clear that that was the only time that they could make it. So I still got my email time in that day. It just wasn't at the 8 or the 4 o'clock hour necessarily. So one thing here is we've scheduled time for email checking. We've scheduled time for our core tasks. We've scheduled time for the deep work. I personally don't schedule time for daily review, but that's just a personal choice. And then shallows and serendipity, I'm going to talk about very quickly. So serendipity is essentially, I would define it as just little fun, not even tasks, but little fun moments throughout your day, and especially during your work day. So actually today, Emily Kay knows this. I love bears. And when I locked my computer this morning, the screensaver that Microsoft automatically provided me was two bear cubs. And so I honestly, I screamed in my office. I was so excited that the little bear cubs showed up on my computer. So little moments like that, that it just takes you outside of your work, outside of what you're doing, and it reminds you that you're human, and that you have things outside of work that you enjoy and honestly bring you joy. And so getting these opportunities during the workday, I would say is essential to basically making you feel human, and adding a little bit of enjoyment into your workday. So a few things that I do on campus, I have a few specific trees that I like watching the colors change this time of year. So I will go on a walk, and I will specifically walk by those trees just to admire them. We have a koi pond. So I like going down to the koi pond. We have turtles. A few years we had ducks. So just going down there and kind of seeing those, they bring little serendipity moments throughout my workday. And then we can go on to the next slide. So this is the end, but we want to allow some time for a Q&A. So we've put some questions here. We're happy to answer these. You guys can answer these in the chat if you want to ask Julie or I questions. It's your time to ask what you want, either of us or of the group. And then Emily, did we have anything in the chat that came in? Okay.
How about we start with the bottom one, Sarah? The
Yeah.
bottom question on there of like, will you guys type in the chat, like, what's one strategy you guys feel like you can incorporate today, starting at 11 a.m.? You're going to be able to implement a strategy that you heard about today, or that made it okay because Sarah and Julie did it and didn't get fired.
For Linda's question, Linda, it took me years. And I will say I'm low enough on the totem pole, and I was at the time, as a specialist at Washburn, that I did have that, okay, am I going to get fired because I'm not responding to this person's Teams or this person email right away? And the answer is no, I didn't. There's a caveat with that though. If you're my boss or you're my boss's boss, I'm going to get back to you very quickly. But I have kind of switched that. So with my direct supervisor, if I get emailed a task to do, and it doesn't have a timeline and I'm busy, I will reply to that email and I will say, hey, do you have a deadline? So before I simply used to drop what I was doing and get it done and then be like, hey, I did this. But now I'm even with my boss. I'm like, is there a deadline on this? Because I may not get to this right now. And he has never once, like I have never gotten in trouble for switching. To doing things slightly different and slightly slower.
I started these particular strategies, especially from Jordan Rayner in June, and they were life changing. So, but it does take time. So, Linda, be patient with yourself, and you can start small and incorporate more things over time. I kind of did the rip the Band-Aid off approach to this.
I didn't. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people are going to take their breaks, 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon. I would say honestly get outside if you're able to, because there is a lot of research on sunlight at specific times, but in general throughout the day. So get outside even during cloudy days. You still get the benefits of the sunlight, to an extent. So get outside if you're able to, because there is very heavy scientific research that you will essentially feel better. And yes, even within a 15-minute break, it's a small enough window that absolutely will help you.
I think one of the things too about cognitive switching that you can utilize without taking an official break is just simply to, I'm in between emails, or I just finished a student appointment and now I need to cognitively switch to another task. Just stand up for a minute
Yeah.
at your desk, and maybe stretch or something. But just that like physical or tactile moment and movement can be really effective just to like reset your brain that I'm now moving from this task to this other task so that I can close the loop on the other one and start the next process.
I'm going to highlight something that Julie Finn said in the chat was not always feeling the pressure to respond immediately. I used to place that pressure on myself that I would legitimately drop what I was doing to respond to whoever had contacted me. And I made a very conscious choice and a very conscious switch to not do that. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't actually tell anyone in the office that I was doing this. Because I was like, either it's going to go well or it won't. I will find out. And so I turned off the little pop-ups that you get on the bottom of your screen. So I only know I have an unread email now when I go into my emails. And so if I'm not actively working on something, a lot of times I'll simply close that window if it's not like super difficult to get back into. So like Outlook, I'll close Outlook if it's not like an email block and I haven't decided that I'm going to use that time to answer emails. I'll close Outlook so I'm not even tempted. So it is a very difficult shift to go from placing that pressure on yourself to either removing it or lessening the pressure. But you're not going to get fired.
They know how to get a hold of you. They will pick up the phone and they will
Show
call
up in
you
person.
if something is emergent. Right. Yes. Yeah, they really will. And I think it's made me, hopefully, my team can then tell me, like, nope, Julie, you're still terrible with Teams and Teamsing us 100% of the day. But I feel like I'm trying to be a better teammate as well, to be more cognizant of when I choose to team someone.
Yeah.
And so I've done it less. I still have a long ways to go. Sorry, Wichita State Innate team. I'm trying.
And Amanda mentioned getting distracted easily and that lately, and that it's been hard lately. So one thing for Amanda, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, is like, has something happened that's made it difficult? And so brainstorming, like, is it a particular like event that happened or something that's coming up, that's making you feel this way? And brainstorming the why, and then you can work on, based on that why, different options to helping you reduce that noise. So is it I have a cubicle, and I'm with the specialist, and the specialists are the people in our office that take our phone calls. So there's moments where I might be trying to focus and do deep work, but I have 4 specialists on 4 different phone calls. And just knowing me as a person, that makes it very hard for me to focus on my work, even if I'm not involved in any of those phone calls. Simply having that background noise makes it difficult for me. For some people, they can tune it out. For me, some days I can, some days I can't. So like brainstorming, like, are headphones an option? Is working remote an option? Is there some other room on campus that I can go to essentially remove myself from the busyness of that part of the office? So brainstorming your why, and then from the why, kind of with what works for you, and knowing that it's going to be trial and error and it's going to be a lot of error. And that is totally okay.
And I think the other piece to noise is not just sound, but just, what are the things that are trying to draw our attention away from the singular focus, the single priority that we should be working on, and just being honest that this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to let the other things fall to the side. I even told poor little Ben, no, we couldn't play flag football this year because we already had enough noise and enough other things that it was just going to be yet another activity that I just couldn't fit into our time budget. So we compromised, and now he's going to play basketball when we don't have as many other things going
Okay, so we do have a survey. We've got a QR code here. And I think Emily Kay put the link in the chat.
on.
And so we would like for you guys to go ahead and do this. In addition, like it's definitely a review of kind of what we talked about today, and give us our feedback for that. But then also it talks about what you guys would like to see for future professional development opportunities through CASPA. And we on the committee, we'd love to hear what you guys are looking for. We have our own ideas, and we have a lot of things that we're excited to do, but a lot of this is what does the membership want, and what are you guys interested in learning about? What do you want to learn about? So definitely let us know your ideas, and don't hesitate to reach out to Julie or myself, either with questions, feedback, things that you'd like to see as well. We are happy to help you guys through this journey because it is a journey and it does take a very long time. But it's something that we're both passionate about, and we think that you guys can use some of these tools throughout your daily life to help you get that work-life balance.